My name is Vern Troyer. I live in Hollywood, California, and I'm a mage. I'm master of the arcane. There are 9 million players in the world of Warcraft. It's huge, like my mage. I'm Vern Troyer, and I'm a mage. What's your game?
Hey, it's Soul. It's April 27th, 2018. This is Warcraft Weekly. That's probably Bob over there, and let's get right to it, for a change. Today's episode is brought to you by Rethqual. Rethqual, performance enhancement for gamers, because you know, Reth rhymes with meth.
What elves kind of are High Elves, with slightly different eye color, different backstory?
So let's start with a very bite-sized version of what had happened in the most recent dev Q&A with Ion Hazzikostas and Josh Allen. I keep trying to say Josh Lore.
Wait, what about how was your week?
Actually, I'm going to get to that later in the show for a change.
You're actually listening to your audience?
Sort of. Anyway, this particular Q&A was quite, I don't know, I guess controversial. There was a lot of non-information that was said, but at the same time, there are a few clarifications that were stated that, well, just kind of added fuel to the ever-burning fire of drama. So let's just kind of get to those highlights. When it comes to these throughput abilities and other utility abilities that are going on to the global cooldown, it looks like that's gonna be a thing. The only bright side to it is that so far Blizzard has no intention to add more abilities to the global cooldown, and they do expect to take some of them off, and they had talked about that just a little bit during the Q&A. And I encourage you to watch at least that portion of it, and fortunately it was the first question that was asked. I think he made some pretty good points as to what he thinks is kind of the long-term health of the game that he wants the Blizzard team to focus on, rather than just kind of the short-term satisfaction or the short-term pains that we as players are going to experience once all these changes go through and we start experiencing this on live servers. You will be able to respec the Azerite traits in your special Azerite gear. It's going to start off with a pretty low gold cost, like 10 or so gold, and the way it's going to function is very similar to how the old respecing of talents worked back in the ancient days of WoW, where every time you respec within a certain time, the cost of it is going to go up and up and up, but if you don't respec your gear for a little while, that cost is going to decay over time. Personally, I'm not too happy about that. I totally anticipate like my team wanting to go out and respec their Azerite gear for a given fight during progression, and if it in fact is going to be like cheap, I mean it starts out at 10 gold, but if it maxes out at like 100 gold or something, I'm like, wow, what's the point? It's such a low cost. Even, at least in my opinion, it's a pretty low cost. If they're still going to have war table missions or whatever they're going to call it that give gold, then the whole respecing of Azerite traits on your gear, that's going to be so trivial that it's just going to be a big inconvenience more than anything. I'd rather have it be like a very ridiculous gold cost, or even like a material cost that involves professions. I think that would just be a lot more fun. I think it'd be kind of weird to think that, oh, I want to farm for another piece of this Azerite gear so that way I can save a bunch of gold. That's a little weird to me. Island expeditions are going to be the most efficient way to farm for artifact power, because apparently we're calling it artifact power now.
They kind of put themselves into a corner with making the AP into AP.
Yeah, they should have just called it bacon, you know? Hey guys, let's go farm for some bacon, right? Ooh, I got hella bacon from this run, guys. God, I need like 6 billion bacon to get to the next level. I think it'd be fun. Yeah, they should rename it to bacon. Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah. As for the Azerite traits themselves, they're meant to be more fun over time. What we're seeing so far are like the doo-doo butter of Azerite traits, and we're expected to see more cool stuff when we get into raid level content and we start to see more unique traits. Personal loot is going to be a thing. It seems all but, you know, the train's moving. We're going in that direction. Oh boy. My guild and I had talked about this last night, and we kind of came to the conclusion that it is going to kind of adversely affect us, even a casual guild like ours, because there are, well, let me describe how we do our runs. Go through normal, and then we go through heroic, and then once heroic is done, then I start to open things up for bringing in alts, so that way we can bring them in on normal runs. So it's kind of like prestiging. It's like, okay, we're done, but now we're going to reset ourselves and bring crappy tunes, or crappier tunes or alts, and then start doing the content all over again. The thing is, though, there are a number of us, myself included, who still stick with bringing our mains because we want to, say, complete transmog sets. We want to keep going with certain gearing, or in this case, it might be like Azeroth traits that we're trying to nail that we just don't ever tap and see on our heroic runs. We do these runs on group loot because we have a mix of alts and mains. These mains are typically very heavily geared, but if we're doing normal or even heroic runs once these alts are up to speed, there's a high likelihood that a piece of gear will drop for an alt that it's like, okay, cool, but I as a guild lead and a raid lead would prefer that those pieces go to mains, so that way they can get themselves geared out and they can prepare for the next raid. And we can't do that the same way anymore. That really sucks. In a way, Blizzard is discouraging folks like me to continue bringing my main to gear them out for transmog and other collection purposes because I have to wait until an alt of the same armor type is up to speed, and that's weird to me. Of course, if personal loot happens to give me a piece of gear that I don't need and I already have the transmog, okay, cool, then I'm going to give it to an alt. The way that my runs work, and you guys might contest the way that I do loot rules here, like let's say a piece of gear drops, and for me it's good for transmog, and for someone's alt it's like an upgrade, I consider that an equivalent, so we will roll off for it. A one-to-one roll-off. There's no bias there. Whoever wins it, just wins it. In other words, in my guild, the loot rule is if you need it, roll for it. If you don't need it, and I emphasize that word, need, then you greed for it. But we won't be able to do that anymore, so I'm kind of bummed out about that. I know that that's not the point, though. Personal loot is meant to be personal loot. That's it. When it comes to loot, it's all you. It's super laser focused. Loot that drops for the person next to me has nothing to do with me unless that loot is like tradable in that sense. And it's hard. It's extremely hard to make that sort of connection from a player standpoint because we'll constantly look at the things that other people got. And in a discussion with my guild last night, the best solution, which isn't really a solution, but the best solution is if you don't even see what other people get. It's all like secret. I think that's the only way to really get away from that negativity of, that person got something and I didn't. Because I know it's not supposed to matter because that's the nature of personal loot, but it does matter because we're seeing it. And that perception is what causes a lot of this negativity that we've been seeing with regards to like legendary gear or Titan Forge stuff that drops in LFR and so on. So that's my take on it. I think that's the most long-winded thing that I have to say for the weekly. So let's move on. Gearing for PvP, as I guess I'm kind of clarifying or just kind of reminding you folks, it's going to be more consistent. It's going to be a mix of randomness that you might get something cool from a strong box, but on top of that, you're going to get a weekly goal where if you hit that goal, you get a set piece of gear. And there are going to be catch-up mechanisms in case you happen to miss weeks, so you'll always be able to work consistently to complete your set. You'll no longer be able to blacklist battlegrounds such as Alterac Valley and Isle of Conquest because, well, those two particular battlegrounds are going into an entirely separate bucket, as they call it. Epic battlegrounds, as they're going to call it, are going to include those two battlegrounds, as well as other large things in maybe the near future, such as Wintergrasp, Ashran, and Tol Barad. Meanwhile, Strand of the Ancients, according to a very short blue post, is being removed. And apparently, because I guess I'm so disconnected from PvP, that Strand of the Ancients is absolutely reviled by many players. I, for one, liked it a lot. It was one of my favorites because it was one that Horde would do a lot better of a job winning normally.
That's probably why they're taking it out.
Those bastards! So unlike Ashran, which is going on a temporary hiatus, we don't quite know exactly what the state of Strand of the Ancients is going to be. It might come back after going away for a little bit, or it just might be gone. They talked about High Elves, and well, you know, I talk about High Elves a lot, so I'm just going to put a picture up right there and count to 3. 1, 2, 3. The last question was about the Horde being evil, and I'm like, dude, Josh, Lore, why did you let that question go through? And Ian pointed out a few things, and I think is like the worst way.
Evil's, it's a matter of perspective. Both sides should be worried about this.
You had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent.
Anakin, Chancellor Palpatine is evil! From my point of view, the Jedi are evil!
I think the handling of that, as well as the whole High Elf sort of thing, I mean, it makes sense from maybe it makes sense from a game director / former lawyer standpoint, but not so much from a writing standpoint. I think it would have been better if it was like Alex Afriasabi or like Christy Golden that had come up to make some small nuanced statement that let players still be excited and let them celebrate who they are as a class or a race or a faction, but at the same time, still be passionate about the game itself. Yeah, it was an interesting Q&A from a hey, let's see how the fans react kind of standpoint. Once again, I do recommend listening and watching the whole thing. I'm going to provide a link below, and I also have a link below where I have my extended thoughts on every single question that was asked, backwards. This week's featured WoW YouTuber is Zach from the Nerds Templar. The Nerds Templar is a pop culture website that's focused on movies and comics. His kind of shtick is to interview people from the gaming industry, and for some strange reason he decided to interview me.
Why?
I don't know, just free publicity. It's no big deal for me. But outside of that interview, I took a few minutes to talk with him about who he is and what he does, so I can present him here. So here we go. Yeah, here we go. Whoa. So anyway, you are the Nerds Templar. How did that name?
I am.
How did that name come about?
It's actually a website I write for. Although I'm the only guy working in the games department. So I was like, instead of writing articles, which I love doing, but YouTube's a better platform for it, I was like, videos, let's do that.
So what got you all about, I want to talk about World of Warcraft, because it looks like you do other things. I know that, we're pre-recording this, but I know like tomorrow you're going to be talking with the gentleman or gentlelady who did Super Meat Boy, I believe. And then
Tommy Rafinis.
Yeah, and then the day after you're going to talk with Perk, who loves to talk with like everybody. I was joking about that earlier. I was like, oh, that's cool though. So what did get you interested in talking about WoW?
Wow. So I'm a Wrath baby. I started way back when in high school, and I took a long break after Wrath, came back about 2 years ago now. And it's just been nonstop. It's the constant game I keep coming back to. And I found myself watching a lot of content creators. And then I was like, maybe I should interview them. So I used my website, used my nice lead video game journalist title. And I was like, hey, you want to do an interview? First person I ever did was Nixium, and it was terrible. It was my first shot at YouTube, and the video just came out terrible. Interview was okay. And then I started doing like article-based ones, and I have like Novel on there. I have a couple with Talias and Evitel, and a few other YouTubers as well. Hyrule Red's on there. Kakio's on there.
Wait. That's how you're supposed to pronounce it? Hyrule Red?
I believe so.
Oh, really?
I believe that's what he told me.
We chatted we chatted one time for like a collab that we did, and he spent like the next 2 or 3 minutes just like bitching about his own name. He's like, this is like a terrible name that I thought of. What was I thinking?
Yes. In my interview with him on YouTube, same exact conversation happens.
Let me get to the last question that the most likely question that I will feature. So last thing. We already kind of talked about it. What do you do? What are you bringing to our lovely little community of WoW people? Right?
So I find a lot of people do Q&As now, and a lot of streamers or YouTubers don't do Q&As. So I kind of like to just talk to streamers, have their viewers get a chance to know things about them that might not come up. Now, sure, you have the generic things like, oh, what did you do before this? Why did you choose this? but sometimes it's nice to get into the nitty and gritty and being like, what's your personal opinion on this and why? Like, let's go through the thought process.
Are you wearing pants?
I'm not wearing pants.
You're not wearing pants. Okay.
Oh.
Well, sign of the times, man. Just yeah, bro fist. Yeah. Woo! So I recommend that you take a look at this guy, send him some input, some love, check out his website, the Nerds Templar, as well. My hopes are that I can reach out to other WoW YouTubers, maybe even ones that I had featured before, so I can take like 2 minutes or so to talk with them and give them a chance to say what's up and let you folks at home and elsewhere know what's going on with them. So the Battle for Azeroth beta is here. Yay! If you're watching this, it is Friday, so double check your client and see if your account has been flagged for the beta. Check there, don't check your email. Check your client first, that's how you know you'll get in. But if you're not in the beta yet, keep an eye on your favorite fan sites like MMO Champion or Wowhead or reddit.com/r/all, because at some point, maybe now, maybe really soon, they're going to be doing some beta key giveaways. You can pretty much count on that. Even I'm trying to reach out to see if they can give me a couple of beta keys so I can give them out as like a contest sort of thing, because that's a lot cheaper than giving away WoW tokens.
Yeah, so we can multi-box the beta, give our feedback.
No, that's a good idea. Anyway, the biggest thing about the beta that you might be worried about is no, you cannot copy your characters, at least not yet. When it comes to class overhauls, a lot of the big things are done, with the exception of things like finishing up with the changes to abilities that are on or off the global cooldown. And Blizzard pointed out that Warriors and Death Knights are going to get a little bit more attention before they're considered done. So all you Death Knights out there, join hands and pray to the Blizzard gods that they do something about Pillar of Frost.
That's really all he remembers about Death Knights.
Yes. During the final alpha build that went out last week, there came a preview of the quests or the storyline that's going to lead to the burning of Teldrassil. I was called out to test that thing out and maybe provide my feedback or reactions to it, but when I actually tried doing it, it was, I don't know, it was just so bare bones and empty. There was really nothing going on. There really isn't enough. It's like taking a novel and you're really only looking at like 1 or 2 pages at the very beginning. I'm going to try not to spoil much, but the only things that I really got out of this is you go to a certain location, you see a bunch of Alliance bodies on the ground that are covered with green stuff, and then down the road, or I guess across an entire zone, but down the road, and at the other side you see a bunch of dead Horde bodies, and like this wall of wisps that is apparently this instant kill sort of thing if any Horde try to pass through. And I find that kind of ironic. Green blight that makes you sick and hurts both friend and foe? Bad. Bad. A wall comprised of dead spirits that instantly kills the enemy? That's okay.
Well, it's efficient.
Yeah, it's totally humane. I mean, you're defending your land. You gotta do what it takes to survive, right? So there was an update. I believe the second update that was done for the Before the Storm book over on Amazon's website, where they updated the description of the premise of the story. Now, as far as I know, the story has already been written, it's already being printed, and it's just a matter of, distributing and all that stuff. But the fact that this is another description change, now I'm not familiar with how often this is done in books, but it almost seems like, I don't know, we can probably make up our own little conspiracy theory about this. We can kind of paint a scenario where Blizzard is taking these small steps to misdirect players, just because there's data mining available and we can look them through, we can peer into files and basically break down everything months, literally months before we're able to see this on live. Is this intentional, or is this some sort of weird miscommunication, mismanagement of information sharing when it comes to like the book description on Amazon? So now that we're at the tail end of the weekly, I'm going to field a number of questions. One of them I had missed from the super big weekly that I've been doing all throughout the week. I very much encourage taking a listen to that. I share a lot. Personal thoughts on certain things, opinions on gameplay, mechanics, and other such things. It was a lot of fun to do. Anyway, here's the question that I missed that came from Super J-Man. He writes, I may be in the minority here, but I'm really looking forward to the Dark Iron Dwarves. I can understand the bait and switch feel, as people have been looking forward to the new trolls since the announcement at BlizzCon. My question to you, Soul, do any of the allied races interest you as far as making one of them a main, or are they more of a novelty for you? To me, they're more of a novelty. I'm like one of those super conservative players where it's like, cool, I have this, class and spec and race in mind, and I'm just going to stick to that, and that's pretty much it. The former High Elves, as I will troll people with saying that for a quick minute, they're a good fit. They're a good look. I like how they look and sound and dance and dress and all that. So I'm good with them. As for other races that are coming, I am actually interested in the Zandalari trolls. But this is under the premise that by the time we do get them as a playable race as the Horde, that the narrative and the questing is going to create a story that is going to allow them to become paladins. I think that'd be cool. But I think I've said this in stream before, where a lot of it's going to depend on the mount that you get, because we get some pretty cool themes that come from the Zandalari trolls and Zandalar itself. If they allow us to have like a big gold metal T-Rex dinosaur kind of thing as their paladin class race mount sort of thing, I'd be a lot more tempted to switch over, because it's just a really badass looking mount. Of course, we haven't seen what this badass looking mount is, and for all we know, it might suck, so I might just stick with what I got. The second question, I'll only stick to two, is from Dogmelter42 with a follow-up from the Q&A. He says, hey Soul, if Alliance had High Elves with Paladins, would I go Alliance or would I stay as a Horde main? That's a good question, actually. I think if I consider what was going on at the time, so in the Burning Crusade, Paladins became a thing for the Horde, and so what would be the vehicle that would drive that? And I guess it may have been the Torrent. They may have introduced the Sunwalker, the Order of the Sunwalkers in that case, or they might have gone a totally different direction, and that's when they would have allowed undead Forsaken Paladins to become a thing. So it really would depend on how they would approach it. If they did in fact have Forsaken Paladins, I would have been like, cool, yeah, I have no problem with this. But if they didn't do that and they did it with Tauren 2 instead, I still would have been fine with it, because there would have been no other choice. And I think this actually addresses another follow-up question. I wasn't able to find it for some reason, but someone asked how I have why do I have a Horde bias? And well, 13, 14 years of playing as Horde will do that to you, where as much as I try to understand and read up and look up stuff on the Alliance, when you don't play as that faction, you just lose information. And I guess from that, you develop this natural bias that you can't help. I try to be equal about it where I can, but for the most part, I think it is also healthy to embrace it too. I'm a Horde player, and I'm going to have fun with that. So that wraps things up. So I'm going to, chat freely for a little bit, or if you don't give a shit about it, then that's totally fine. At least like the video, because I saved all this stuff for the end.
For a change.
For a change. We're going to try this out and see how it works. But yeah, how was your week, everyone? My week was busy. This is the most, I think I've logged like the most actual recording time this week. Far more than any other. There was just a lot of content that I put out, but it's fun. I still continue to have fun for some strange reason. Still doing this content and being a part of all these conversations. It's great fun. I know I've said it so many times, but I just really appreciate all of you folks that had put out your questions, and I do encourage you to put out more. I'm going to be a lot more careful about how I'm going to answer these questions. So like if you do want to ask questions, please feel free to do so. Just try to keep the questions themselves brief, and multi-part questions, those are going to be harder to answer, and I myself am going to put much more effort into trying to talk a little bit less on or just try to answer them faster, because man, 3 hours of Q&A stuff. I mean, it was a lot of questions. Because when you think about it, the Q&As that go on, the developer Q&As, those have around 20 or so questions, and that takes about an hour to cover everything. I answered almost 80 questions, and then that took about 3 hours. Some of them were like really easy, yes, no sorts of things, but that was very few. There were a lot of them where I was just kind of carrying on and on and on, and there were questions with multiple questions in them anyway, and that's okay. The guild and I, we did our usual thing. We did a little bit of normal, we did a little bit of heroic, we cleared heroic, got a new guy who came from the stream. Hi. We got him ahead of the curve. We got him AOTC, which I really do appreciate. And I run a small group, but at the same time, I'm always happy to bring folks in that don't have a chance to raid or don't get a chance to do much, and they just want to hang out and be part of a consistent group. And I try to be consistent. We're always showing up on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Pacific time. You can see us on stream too, to either watch or hang out, or even if you want to come along for the ride, feel free. I hope all of you had a good week, and I encourage you, as always, to share your stories, your wins, your losses, your drama, the cool things and bad things that happen in the world of Warcraft, or the fleshy 3D world. And thanks to there being no alpha build this week, yeah, that's going to be it for this week. I want to thank all of you who made it to the end of this week, and I would love to get your input on this kind of reorganization of the format. Like, what do you think? Do you think this is an improvement? Do you think it could use some work? Is it dog do? What should I do, huh? I also want to give a special thanks to the new subscribers, the new patron who had signed up. Thank you very much for contributing to the lifeblood of this channel. If you want to be part of the family or an honorary breezy, take a look at the Patreon link below, see if you're interested, and sign up. Otherwise, I encourage you to like this video, to subscribe to the channel to help support me, and to share me with others in case you want to help spread a neutral-ish, positive-ish side of the world of Warcraft.
And if not, just unsub.
Hey!
I'm just kidding. I can't unsubscribe if I never subscribed in the first place.
Hey! Anyway, stay tuned next week for more of me, violence, and shenanigans. I'm gonna get out of here so I can watch The Avengers, oh my god, and spoiler alerts, Metal Dumbledore dies. You have a good one, and we will see you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.